Hello and welcome back to Scrum Study. This is our video segment on the review and retrospect phase. So far, we have seen the first process in this phase, that is, convene Scrum of Scrums. Today, we will be learning about the second process, demonstrate and validate Sprint. Let's see what are the inputs required to start the process. The source of input in this process is undoubtedly the Scrum core team. So, how will we define the Scrum core team? There are three core roles in Scrum that are ultimately responsible for meeting the project objectives. The core roles are the product owner, Scrum Master, and Scrum team. Together, they are referred to as the Scrum core team. It is important to note that of these three roles, no role has authority over the others. Let's meet them one by one. First of all, we will learn about the product owner. The product owner is the person responsible for maximizing business value for the project. He or she is responsible for articulating customer requirements and maintaining business justification for the project. The product owner represents the voice of the customer. Corresponding to a product owner role in a project, there could be a program product owner for a program or a portfolio product owner for a portfolio. Here comes the next important person in the team, the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a facilitator who ensures that the Scrum team is provided with an environment conducive to completing the product's development successfully. The Scrum Master guides, facilitates, and teaches Scrum practices to everyone involved in the project, clears impediments for the team, and ensures that Scrum processes are being followed. Note that the Scrum Master role is very different from the role played by the project manager in a traditional waterfall model of project management, in which the project manager works as a manager or leader for the project. The Scrum Master only works as a facilitator, and he or she is at the same hierarchical level as anyone else in the Scrum team. Any person from the Scrum team who learns how to facilitate Scrum projects can become the Scrum Master for a project or for a sprint. Corresponding to a Scrum Master role in a project, there could be a program Scrum Master for a program or a portfolio Scrum Master for a portfolio. Now, it's time to meet the team. So we have the Scrum team here. The Scrum team is a group or team of people who are responsible for understanding the business requirements specified by the product owner, estimating user stories, and final creation of the project deliverables. We have a diagram here to give a clear understanding of the core Scrum team roles. Moving on, another important source of input is the Sprint Deliverables. At the end of each sprint, a product increment or deliverable is completed. The deliverable should possess all features and functionality defined in the user stories included in the sprint and should have been tested successfully. Next source of input is the Sprint Backlog. The list of the tasks to be executed by the Scrum team in the upcoming sprint is called the Sprint Backlog. It is common practice that the Sprint Backlog is represented on a Scrum board or task board, which provides a constantly visible depiction of the status of the user stories in the backlog. Also included in the Sprint Backlog are any risks associated with the various tasks. Any mitigating activities to address the identified risks would also be included as tasks in the Sprint Backlog. Once the Sprint Backlog is finalized and committed to by the Scrum team, new user stories should not be added. However, tasks that might have been missed or overlooked from the committed user stories may need to be added. If new requirements arise during a sprint, they will be added to the overall prioritized product backlog and included in a future sprint. We have the done criteria as another important source of input to discuss now. Done criteria are a set of rules that are applicable to all user stories. A clear definition of done is critical because it removes ambiguity from requirements and helps the team adhere to mandatory quality norms. This clear definition is used to create the done criteria that are an output of the create prioritized product backlog process. A user story is considered done when it is demonstrated to and approved by the product owner who judges it on the basis of the done criteria and the user story acceptance criteria. The table shows an example of the done criteria. It is about a project to design the new variants of a popular sports car at LRA Limited. The done criteria listed for the project are as follows. The design is approved by the Technical Excellence Division. The prototype passes all wind tunnel tests mandated by the Aerodynamics Division. The design is cleared for production by the Intellectual Property Division. The design safety expectations are corroborated by the Safety Division's Design Safety Report. The cost estimation report for the design is approved by the Finance Division. Now, we're going to see the role of the user stories and acceptance criteria as a source of input in the process. Every user story has an associated acceptance criteria. User stories are subjective, so the acceptance criteria provide the objectivity required for the user story to be considered as done or not done during the sprint review. Acceptance criteria provide clarity to the team on what is expected of the user story, remove the ambiguity from requirements, and help in aligning expectations. The product owner defines and communicates the acceptance criteria to the Scrum team. In the sprint review meetings, the acceptance criteria provide the context for the product owner to decide if a user story has been completed satisfactorily. It is important and the responsibility of the Scrum Master to ensure that the product owner does not change the acceptance criteria of a committed user story in the middle of a sprint. The Scrum team must ensure that defined acceptance criteria are appropriate for the user stories and provide clarity regarding the requirements to the Scrum team. Acceptance testing refers to the assessment of the ability of the completed deliverable to meet its acceptance criteria. This provides information to the product owner to help make a decision about approving or rejecting the deliverable. When developing user story acceptance criteria, the following should be considered. Acceptance criteria should not be vague, ambiguous, or too generalized. Defined acceptance criteria should ensure that the team is able to verify that the outcomes are in alignment with the sponsor organization's goals and objectives. So we have our inputs ready. What are we waiting for? Let's see the tools available to make use of the inputs. The tool being used in this process is the Sprint Review Meeting. The Scrum core team members and relevant stakeholders participate in sprint review meetings to accept the deliverables which meet the user story acceptance criteria and reject unacceptable deliverables. These meetings are convened at the end of every sprint. The Scrum team demonstrates the achievements from the sprint, including the new functionalities or products created. This provides an opportunity for the product owner and stakeholders to inspect what has been completed so far and to determine if any changes should be made in the project or processes in subsequent sprints. Well, it's time to see the outputs of the process. The main output generated is the accepted deliverables. Deliverables which meet the user story acceptance criteria are accepted by the product owner. The objective of a sprint is to create potentially shippable deliverables, or product increments, which meet the acceptance criteria defined by the customer and product owner. These are considered accepted deliverables that may be released to the customer if they so desire. A list of accepted deliverables is maintained and updated after each sprint review meeting. If a deliverable does not meet the defined acceptance criteria, it is not considered accepted and will usually be carried forward into a subsequent sprint to rectify any issues. This is highly undesirable because the objective of every sprint is for the deliverables to meet the criteria for acceptance. So with this, we've come to an end of the video segment featuring the second process in the review and retrospect phase. Stay tuned because you have to learn the third process too. We'll see you in the next video on Retrospect Sprint. Thanks for watching.